one of the top contributors to Drupal 7, and I'm also the mobile initiative lead for the Drupal 8, which hopefully will get released sometime next year. I've also co-authored a book called Drupal 7 Module Development, and written a whole bunch of modules and themes like the Zen theme. I'm basically a front-end developer with some back-end development skills.
他的名字是 John Alvin Wilkins， 那我的名字是 Jenny Wilkins， 我是他老婆，也是他的翻译。然后他是那个 Zen 的那个 theme maintainer， 然后他还跟了一群很好的 Drupal 朋友写了一本书，所以然后他现在在那个 Drupal 8， 他是那个 Mobile Initiative 的那个 owner， 所以他那个地方是他负责的 Drupal 8里面的一块。
And one of the things that I really like talking about is front-end development. And this session is mostly going to be about CSS techniques. So if you're expecting a lot of Drupal stuff, you're not actually going to get it in this session.
他很喜欢讲的就是那个前端的东西。那他今天会讲的比较多的是跟 CSS 有关的。那如果说你要听懂跟 Drupal 比较深入的 Drupal 的那个东西的话，你可能这一场听不到。
I just recently released the 7.x 5.0 release of Zen, and it has a lot of really useful techniques for building responsive mobile websites. And these slides are sort of the ideas behind some of the concepts and code that's in the Zen theme.
他最近那个 Zen 有一个新的那个 release 7.7.0 5.0 7.x 5.0的最新的那个 Zen 的 release， 然后他今天要讲的很多这个那个 slides 都是跟这个有关的。
So the traditional way to build a mobile website prior to about a year and a half ago was to build a completely different website. This, of course, was actually quite hard and made all the people who have to build those websites really unhappy.
差不多在一年半吧之前，那个如果你要写一个那个 website， 就是在手机上看的话，你简直就是说你要重新写，然后专门就写一个跟手机那个版本可以相容的。那其实那真的很难做。
But hopefully by now everyone here has heard of responsive design. Who here hasn't heard about responsive design?
大家都对这个弹性网页设计有听过吗？有听过的举手。
They haven't heard about that or have? Oh, okay, good. You scared me for a second. So instead of building a completely separate website, single set of HTML, and then it just responds to different sizes. So that, of course, makes everybody much happier.
现在你只要写一次就好，你不用再完全在用手机版本的话，你还要再重新再建造一个。你现在是用一个，然后他如果知道说你用的是什么样子的那个 size， 你看的那个大小，然后他就可以说哦，我知道你这个多大，我就 display 这个大小给你。
Maybe I should stand on this side so you can read the slides a little better. She hadn't seen the slides until just now. She's doing a very good job. Thank you. So I wanted to show you a responsive site that we built. I work for Palantir.net, and this is the site that we built for ourselves.
他现在在这个公司任职，然后他现在要给你们看的是一个他们在这个公司为这个公司做的一个那个 responsive design.
So this is what the site looks like at regular desktop size. You can see you have image here. We have some extra information about this is a gallery. So we're talking about this website, and there's information about the team that built it. Sort of body text, related articles and related projects. And then when we get down to smaller size for like tablets, you can see that this related information has moved over down here. The team is over here. And you can get even smaller. It becomes more single column related. We still got a couple columns here at the very bottom here for similar projects and highlights because of very narrow content. And then here's our mobile, just single column. You want to do that again with, here we go.
Okay, next one.
Yeah.
这个 desktop 就是你在电脑上、荧幕上看到的，你就这个很就是你看到的就是这个样子，对不对？在你的电脑啊，你的那个 notebook。
It's a video.
Oh.
It's
Okay, keep going. It doesn't. Oh, here you go. 然后这个就比较小了一点，然后你又看到说他们把东西往旁边放，往那个左边，你们的右边。然后你再看到这个又更小了，这变成一个就是一个 column 了。然后这个又有小的那种像那种7寸的，有没有？再来，你就是看到那个在手机荧幕上的。
So when you start actually building your own Drupal website especially, the really obvious way to do this, of course, is to take your regions and move those around. So here's sort of a diagram of traditional Drupal website on the desktop. Left sidebar, right sidebar, sort of main content.
你看到最右边的那个，你看到那个颜色不一样，它那个是主要的那个 regions。那你越来越小的话，就是把它往地方放 reposition.
Yeah, and then for the smaller sizes, the black box represents the viewport, and then you can see the sidebar drops down, and then smaller sidebars drop down some more. This is a really obvious and easy way to do responsive using Drupal regions.
你用 Drupal 的那个 region 的话，你就会看到那个比较浅的那个绿色。你那个荧幕越小的话，你就把东西往下放。OK， 那你从最右边的话，那是比较大，就是我们正常的荧幕。然后你看到最小的，你就看到说它怎么把那个区块就一直往下延伸。
Yeah. And this pattern is really it's becoming really prevalent. And this image is from Luke Ryblewski's blog post about the different patterns he's seen in responsive layouts.
下面那个 website 那个 address， 它讲的就是这样子的 layout， 然后很多人现在都是用这样子的 layout 去做那个 responsive design。
You're not going to say Luke Ryblewski?
Luke Ryblewski。我没有办法我没有办法那个翻译那个名字。
This is the way that the start theme is going to look in Drupal 8. If you know the start theme in Drupal 7, it's just a way to sort of show off Drupal's default markup, and it has just a little bit of CSS for layout. In Drupal 8, it has a responsive layout, and this is the pattern it uses.
那个 Drupal 8的那个 start theme， 就是那个它放在里面的那个 theme， 叫做 start theme， 它会有这一块，这个已经是放进去了，所以你不用自己再去装。
But actually, I feel like developing sites this way is kind of dangerous for two reasons. The first reason, of course, is that people already recognize this as a pattern. So your site design is going to end up looking a lot like a lot of other people's designs because your layout is being responsive in the same way. That's a problem.
他觉得这个蛮危险的，因为其实如果说大家都这样子做的话，那变成说很多人的那个网站啊，其实都会看着一模一样，都长得差不多的，因为大家都是照这个样子去做。
And the second problem is that for mobile, it's very important that you have sort of a sort of small footprint. Let me rephrase that. It's important that you get your point across quickly and that the focus of your website, of your page, is the main content. And the issue with this is that since your main content is here, in order to make your site responsive, you have to like add stuff into the sidebars just so that you can claim it's responsive. Otherwise, it's just a single region with your content.
OK， 你在看一个 website 的时候啊，你最重要的东西都差不多是会在中间。那如果说你在做 responsive 的 website 的时候，你要开始它变成只是一个那个 single column 而已，然后你还要另外再加东西进去，要不然的话就感觉起来你只是一页的东西这样子一直跑，一直跑，一直跑，一直跑。
Yeah, and adding extra content can lead to something like this. This is obviously an extreme case, but this is an actual screenshot, and I had to like scroll down and take screenshots like 8 times to get this entire page here.
对，如果这个是 responsive design.
No, this isn't a responsive design, but it's a site that they've added tons of stuff into the sidebars.
哦，他们放了很多东西在那个 sidebar 那边，然后变成说你到底在看些什么？然后他在做这个的时候，他那个 screenshot 他做8次才可以把这个整个放起来，放在一起。
And the funny thing is that this page is the main point of this page is a video. So they're claiming, you know, go to this page and view this video, and the actual video is here.
最重要的其实是那个 video， 结果到哪里去了？在最下面。
So you're subjecting users to all this extra stuff that you've added in before they can see the main content.
有很多不需要的东西，不是说不需要，就是很多东西被加进去了，所以你最重要的东西变放在最下面。
And what we've discovered is, as people start looking at websites on mobile sites, is that they're unwilling to wait for this entire page to load because it takes much longer to load on a mobile site than it does on a desktop site.
这个你在手机上看的话，一定要等很久，因为这一页这么大这么长，所以而且我们在手机上的时候一定不愿意等，看电脑就已经不愿意等了，更何况是看手机。
So because people are unwilling to wait, we've sort of had to rethink how we build our websites and present our content. And by the year 2014, there will be more mobile users than there are desktop users. Or 2015, sorry.
到2015年的时候，我们会有那个用手机在看那个 web 的人，会比用电脑看 web 的人多。
Yeah. And that's worldwide. There are certain regions where that's happening much faster, and places where it's happening slower. It's actually happening slower in the U.S. and quicker, obviously, in Asia.
其实在美国这个现象还比较没有那么不像在那个亚洲这么快。其实亚洲的这个可能不用等到2015年。
So it's important as you build websites now to be thinking about mobile first. If you're not thinking about building this site for mobile viewers first, you're shooting yourself in the foot because they're going to be your predominant user base in just a few short years.
所以你在那个 design 一个 website 的时候啊，你要先想到这些人，要用手机在看东西的，用那个 tablet 在看东西的。
So when we start thinking mobile first, the obvious thing we need to do is start thinking about our users and our content first. And the nice thing about Drupal is we have a real opportunity with Drupal 7. Okay, which is that it's, where is it? Oh yeah, it provides fields.
在 Drupal 他跳来跳去，不是我的错。他在 Drupal 7，他的意思就是说，在 Drupal 7里面，其实这是对我们来讲是一个非常有利的，因为 Drupal 7它有一些我们可以用的 feature， 可以帮助我们去做这件事情，就是先考虑到那个我们用的那个 device， 像 phone、像 tablet 那一些。
So because our content types have fields, that means that we can start to think about. That means we can, instead of thinking about region-based layouts, we can start thinking about field-based layouts.
我们刚刚之前我们有看到它是用那个 region 有没有一块一块一个区块，但是我们先不要这样子想，我们先用 field， 就是看它每一个的那个field 去那样子的 layout。
And this provides a really great way to have sort of your site, your page be very content-centric, and yet still be responsive, and be able to accommodate both the large and the small screen sizes.
如果你用这样子的方式的话，你就不会有刚刚那个问题，就是你最重要的那个内容居然是在最下面。你这样子的话，你就比较有办法说，我把我最重要的内容，还是人家可以马上就可以看得到，然后不需要一直这样子。还要等它 load 很久。
So each field then becomes a grid item, an element that's on our responsive grid that gets positioned individually.
你现在就可以看到，它每一个是一个 field。那这样子的话，你就可以把这个 field 放在你需要放的位置上。
And if you remember from the demo earlier, we were moving. This is actually one giant image here. We were moving these fields around on the page depending on what the size of the screen.
我们刚刚有看到那个在那个 region 的那个 example 里面呢，我们刚刚有把那个 field 就是把它放在下面的。那你就可以，如果说你的那个荧幕的根据你的荧幕的大小，你可以把它自己放在你需要的地方。
So, as you build your website and you're creating content types, they can be anything from simple content type to a more complex content type. The more complex a content type, actually there's more opportunity to build more complex layouts, more interesting, very layouts.
如果你有很多比较复杂一点的内容啊，或是复杂一点的那个东西的话，你就可以这个的话会变得更丰富，然后更丰富。
But one of the things that people haven't really talked about is techniques for building these layouts. Right? When you had a single desktop layout and that was the only thing you were building for traditional websites, building that CSS for that layout was tricky, but you only had to do one. Right? For a responsive website, you now have to do at least 3, possibly more.
如果说你只是在做一个就是在电脑荧幕上看的话，你只需要考虑到一个 layout， 对不对？那如果说你现在要做手机啊，还要做 tablet， 还要做不一样的东西的话，你可能考虑到的要有3种，可能会到4种。
So we've traditionally sort of just been talking about the CSS, the actual CSS you need to do to implement stuff, and those are our tools for building out to CSS. But there's a difference between if you're a carpenter, there's a difference between, having a hammer and knowing building techniques. And that's what the rest of my presentation is going to be about. The building techniques of how you actually can put all of these grid items together and build interesting layouts.
他现在要讲的就是很多很多的技巧，跟你说要怎么样去做这个 responsive layout。
So here's our basic sort of tool set, right? You have a particular item and you're just going to float it and you're going to give it a specific width, 25%, right? And this other one, it can be clear left, that means it's sort of shifted underneath any previous items, and it's also floated and has a different width, right? That's basically all the CSS that you really need. But again, this is just the tools. I want to talk about the techniques.
其实这个只是一个工具，所以你看到这2个的话，只是一个工具。比如说你第一个是一个那个一个 field， 然后第2个是另外一个 field， 然后它第一个的话 ，basically 它就只是说把它放在左边，然后它的宽度是多少。 然后第二个一样的，基本上是一样的意思，但是做的东西出来又不一样。
Now, recently I saw a blog post on Aqua's website about their responsive layout builder that they're creating, and they talked about creating layouts is kind of like playing a game of Tetris, but upside down.
他最近在那个 Aqua 的那个 website 上面看到一个有人就写了一个 blog， 他们在讲说那个就是你要做一个 responsive layout 的话，你好像在玩那个 Tetris。那个好像现在的啊，俄罗斯方块。我记得我很小的时候玩过，然后但是不是说是从上往下掉，其实这个是是颠倒过来的。OK， 所以刚刚把那个转过来了。
And the reason is that as you look at your source order, the first element there is like the first thing that's coming down in your Tetris game, and you need to position it at the top, and then take your second item and position it, and you're just sort of stacking it, source order this way, but you can sort of lay it out left to right, however you want.
我们俄罗斯方块好像是从上往下掉嘛，但是现在不是，你把那个你是拿一个东西，然后你往上放，然后你可以放你喜欢的地方，你需要放的地方。
So if this is our HTML source order, I've got several of these diagrams, and the numbers represent the HTML source order. So this represents our content sort of natural semantic ordering. And I should say that this is an idea of content first. The most important thing on your page should be the first thing in your HTML source order, and the lesser things come after it. That's how you would want to order it if you had no design at all and you're just reading it as a document. This order should be order of importance. Should be the HTML source order.
你在放你的那个内容的时候，最重要的先给人家看嘛。对，你最重要你要先呈现出来，你是人家最想要找的。所以你在放你的内容的时候，把最重要的放在第一个，然后这样子依序下来。
So what I'm presenting here is a bunch of sort of rules for how you can create layouts, and this is sort of the most important one because all the other rules depend on it.
这个是最重要的第一个对，这是最重要的这是第一个最重要的条件。你要记得，你最重要的东西要先往上放，然后再放第二重要、第三重要这样子下来，然后其他他要讲的都是根据这个来的。
So this rule is called the adjacent sibling rule, and it's pretty basic. So if you have your HTML source order 1, 2, 3, 4, sort of the way that most layouts work today are you're literally just sort of aligning things next to each other, left to right, because that's the way they are in the source order, right? But the adjacent sibling rule says that as long as, like here, 5, 6, 7, 8, as long as these items are next to each other, adjacent to each other in the source order, they can be switched around within a row, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, these are all adjacent to each other, and they can go in any order, but they're in this natural order this way. And then over here, we've swapped them around, and this is completely possible using ordinary CSS techniques.
OK， 它有一个那个条件叫做兄弟姐妹条件，只要是在同一排的，这个是叫排嘛，对不对？列，这个是排，这个是列，然后这个是排，在同一列的，你就可以互相交换地方。比如说，你看1、2、3、4，它虽然是这样子照次序来，有没有？下面的5、6、7、8没有照次序，但是它们都是在旁边。 那以这个兄弟姐妹条件来讲的话，其实你可以把它颠倒交换都没有关系，所以你左右可以是交换的。
And to create a new row, all you need to do is add a sort of a clear left. Yeah, actually, I should point out that these little icons here, that means that they're floated to the left. In order to create a new row, you just need to do a clear left. So this one is a clear left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, the first item in the next row has to be clear. And if you remember from clearing, all the other items then will be at that same row until you clear the next one.
它那个箭头，那个一个一个的箭头，它代表的在 CSS 里面代表的是说flow left， 那下面有写。然后如果说你要再加一列的话，再加一列的那个资料，你要用那个 clear left， 它那个。
Next rule is the opposing float rule. And this is how you create an item that actually spans multiple rows.
它这个 rule 叫做clear opposing float， 它这个是让你有办法造成 number 3第3个那个地方，它就是你可以变成一行，但是是两列。
An element can span multiple rows if it's floating in the opposite direction of the other items. So here we've got 1, 2, 4, and 5, which are floating left, and the third item is actually floating right. Now, because we started our second row here by clearing left, it is only clearing the items that are floated left. It doesn't clear the item floating right. So that means that 4 will appear below 1 and 2 and ignore 3 as far as where its vertical positioning is.
OK， 你看1、2、4、5是 flow left， 所以是往左边。然后你看 number 3， 它是 flow right，OK， 向右边。那在 number 4， 在第4个这个地方，它有一个那个 clear left， 它那个 clear left 这样子写的话，它只能 clear 所有 flow left， 所以它第3个就不会动到。那既然第3个不会动到的话，那 number 4第4就会变成说在第1的下面。
So that's actually a really quite easy way to create these items that are spanning multiple rows.
如果说你用这个技巧的话，你就可以像制造出那种第3 number 3那样子的区块，你就可以把它变成说span， 它就是变成2列这样子的长度。
And then you actually do more complicated layouts using the same rule. 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7 are floating left. 3 and 5 are floated right. You'll see here that we started out the same way until we got to number 5. 4 is starting a new row because it's floating left, so it's going to clear these 2 and ignore 3. And then number 5 is going to be next to 4 because adjacent sibling, right? So it's in the same row, technically. But then